welcome to the Villagers podcast. Who do we have here?
It's Sean Cummings and Deepak. Say your last name because I can't pronounce it.
Jaya Krishnan for the last time.
You say it so easily, Jaya Krishna. And then by the next time it comes to me, all I think of all those letters and I can't get through it.
Hey, when you imitated me, you did it right.
Jaya Krishna. Okay. That's the first time in like 12 years I've ever gotten it right. Jaya Krishna. Jaya Krishna. Okay. So I am deeply disturbed that your lone leftover kind of left-wing TV station was taken over by the richest guy in the country and the third richest guy in the world. We sound like a microcosm of what's happening there. We literally do. In Oklahoma. Wow.
Really?
Dude. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the Gaylord family basically owned the news here forever, and they were the wealthiest, or we all thought they were the wealthiest family. And you know, Harold Hamm doesn't do stuff like that. He works from the inside. He's like a nuclear bomber. And you know, he's the richest guy in Oklahoma. And so everything that he needs happens. And that was depressing, even though I was walking my dog on a beautiful morning. That was depressing.
Yes, these are the clips I share with you when you wake up.
Right. Well, here's the thing that I would ask though. What, without trying to get you in trouble, I hate to say this, I'm a little apprehensive here to say what I actually really think. Berlusconi, the guy from Italy, you remember that guy? Media mogul. Yeah. So he was in charge there 4 different times since like 2008. I think I'm accurate there. And he owned a media empire. And so he could, all of his advertising was free. I mean,
yeah.
How do you compete with that?
As an opposition, you really cannot. How do you You go on platforms like YouTube, Twitter, social media outlets that are not based in the country are your only option to get your message out. And also, I don't know if you heard that bit about how WhatsApp has like its own community of news.
Right.
And some of them are just like straight up trolls and bullies who would just, and anything and everything, they'll just lump you into like a traitor, a Pakistan sympathizer, that kind of stuff.
Right. So what we do here is, well, not we, because I'm not involved. They're doing it to me. Here's how I would say that. Because I gave a speech on Saturday, and I was probably more honest than I should have been. And I went in and I go, hey, last time I was going to come up here, they said I was a leftist Marxist agitator. And then I've been called, exactly. Yeah, I've only been a business owner 40 years, but I'm a leftist Marxist agitator. And so I go through the different things people call me. And then the people on the left all call me a Trumper and all this other stuff. So it's no better. I mean, just so people know, it's no better. And so I said, you know who calls me those kind of names? People whose ass I've kicked. It isn't that they have a political ideology problem with me or anything else. If I've gone in and kicked their ass, they just want, well, he's a political ass, and start making shit up. The problem is, what I understand with your guys' deal is now all media is one side, or all major media is one side. So you've got limited internet, and you know, I can do really good on YouTube, and I can do even better on TikTok. I know you don't have that over there, but I can get to the rural communities on TikTok better than any political party can get to. What does that get me? I'm a city vice mayor. I mean, I could walk my entire thing.
I know. I know that you actually knocked on every door of your constituents.
That's right.
Minus mine, Sean. I still remember this.
Well, I knew you already. So, you know what people don't understand is you have to clock that out. You got to go, I got 3 minutes per door. I can get this many done per day. And I'd end up hanging out with you and BS, and then we could talk for an hour, and then I've missed 30 possible votes. And you know, my election was a landslide, which surprised even me, folks. I'm not bragging. I was surprised. I figured some more people must have disliked me, or my opponent was so bad.
I think she was. It was both of us. She was
right.
Yeah, she scared the crap out of all.
Yeah, she was awful. So how do you, so you've got this guy running that is from the untouchable class. When you give the name of it and everything, Americans don't know what that means. That's why I wrote you back and I'm like, you got to explain this. Yeah, untouchable class. So that's got to be an area where his version of media probably doesn't control as much. They're more WhatsApp folks. Am I accurate on that?
That would be right. And a lot of them are either the WhatsApp folks or the Facebook folks. That's where they get all their news. And I don't know how it works, but it's probably similar to how it is there right now, where the conglomerations took over even like local news channels. So now you don't even get an unbiased version of local news, which can be tricky at times. The newspapers, I still have a feeling they have a modicum of journalistic integrity, where I do read stories, but they're mostly like opinion pieces. I don't think they even like actually, they can't even publish them as news stories, is my guess. But I'll read them in opinions.
Yeah, that's how Fox News legally got away with that up until January 6th stuff. That's when everything went really bad for them. So what we have here, let me tell you how this turns. Oklahoma was controlled basically by the Gaylord family forever. And he was the kingmaker of politics. And so USA Today bought our local newspaper. And it is fairly honest and upfront. It's decent. Now, we have all these other smaller online deals, which are probably a little more local and informing. But hell, I'm pretty happy with the Oklahoman right now. There's a couple of them that are better than others with journalistic integrity, but you know, you also need people to get your opinion out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a need for that, and I am pretty good at working the internet as far as politicians go. That's probably my game, a little better than most folks. But I can only get to a limited amount of people. Even my biggest thing politically on that would be a couple of 100,000 people, which in India wouldn't even matter. However, here, 800,000 people vote in an election. If I can get to 200,000 of them, I can make a difference.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's the microcosm of what you're dealing with. But we have one TV station. What's weird is our local Fox station, Fox 25, has two fantastic reporters there that you would never guess to be at Fox News because it's their local station. Here's the problem. People with educations won't interview with them because they're at Fox News. And I go, no, they're local, they're different. They go, I'm not doing anything to help Rupert Murdoch, period.
See, that is where I think we have to actually get on those platforms, because you miss out on so much of the audience that you could possibly reach and convince, or at least they would understand and have some sort of sympathy toward your cause. If you don't get on those channels, you're just shutting off. It's that thing I told you, right? If you call a Republican be like, come here, you superstitious idiot, of course he's not going to listen.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'll get to what I did this weekend here in a little bit. So without getting you arrested, how does this shake down? Because so you finally got a man of the people, and in de la tierra, of the streets, or the I'm trying to remember the other Hispanic term for it, and unfortunately, a lot of those guys end up with criminal backgrounds because that's how they got out of where they were. So does your person in charge right now go that route, since he basically controls most of the press, you know, or does it even matter? Because those folks are like, yeah, so what?
Yeah, I think it's more of the latter, where they're like indifferent. They're like, this is our...
It's what it takes.
This is our boss. We don't cross paths. Whatever he says is the law of the land.
God, it's just nuts, buddy. Yeah, I really and truly, I won't lie. That might have been a little bit too much information, but now I do want to see the movie, and it kills me to see that. So our governor, Kevin Stitt, literally tried to defund PBS, and he wasn't defunding PBS. They have a thing called PBS NewsHour, And the local version of that does the best news stories because they can spend 15 minutes on it, where everybody else, every other reporter, people need to understand, has to come up with 2 stories a day every day.
Yeah.
And that is, sometimes there's not much going on. So you got to create 2 stories a day every day.
That's when you interview the man who saved the puppy dog from the
That's right.
snake.
Look
or
at this
hell.
girl, yeah, running her lemonade stand and donating her money to so and so. I mean, you know, sometimes you got to do it to fill the airtime. I knew when 24-hour news came along that we were all going to struggle to fill that time. And at the time, I was working for Cablevision on their newsroom, working. I was either doing teleprompters or cameras. So it isn't like I didn't know how it worked. But putting together a never-ending loop of news 24 hours a day is very, very hard.
Oh, yeah. Like, that was the downfall. Like, I think it was like the post 9/11 news landscape ended up being the 24 hours rolling news, where they had to show you. And the worst part was, I think over time, they highlight the most evil things that happen around you. Yeah. And you kind of end up with that sense of helplessness. Like, even if I do something, how is it going to make an impact if there's so much bad shit happening that they need a 24-hour channel to cover the damn thing?
I watch Mexican news here about Mexico, and it is all criminals and all this other stuff. And you go, and I mean this, I've been in Mexico hundreds of times. I've never had an issue, ever. Yeah. And I know the cartels run the border areas to get all their stuff across and everything. That's a whole different ballgame. Most people aren't there. So what do you do, Deepak, to help a candidate? I'm interested because I need to learn from you all to do it here. Although ours seems to be turning a little bit. We may have finally gone pendulum swing all the way out to the insane right. And maybe, just maybe, we can come back.
Yeah. Here, it would be so tricky, especially to unite a country with this many languages.
Yeah.
It is like, so say, for instance, you do end up with a candidate who is from one of the lower classes. Now, do you alienate everybody else who swings right to compensate for not having the lower caste in power? So how does that work at that point? And do you still kind of peg your bet on the other guy who was supposed to run as an opponent, but he's still held up in the Supreme Court's ruling to see whether he can even run or not? Because if they've sentenced him to 2 years of jail for defamation of a person's last name, how do you actually come back from that?
you need to explain that to everyone, because we're
the other candidate
from an audience standpoint,
the other candidate was a left-wing party here, which is the Congress, and he apparently, when he was in Bangalore, he made some remarks at a conference about about somebody's last name. And why are people with that last name into criminal activities is what he implied in his comment. Even paraphrasing might get me to trouble, Sean. That's why I'm tiptoeing around this topic. So they filed a case, and they filed a case in a state where our current leader is from. So that court said, you're sentenced to 2 years in imprisonment. The weird part is that the moment you get sentenced in 2 years in prison, you lose your Minister of Parliament seat.
Wow.
So he was sacked from Parliament.
Right.
So he can no longer be there. And they basically allowed him to pay bail while he fights it in the Supreme Court to figure out if he's even eligible to run. Because once you have a criminal record, you won't be allowed to run. So it depends on whether the Supreme Court upholds a lower court's ruling, or does it dismiss it and say that, it was said more generically than what you guys are implying it out to be.
Well, welcome to politics. You and
I
I could
know.
edit any piece of film and make it look like that. I had a guy send me an AI piece with our mayor in it, and it looked like he was making a speech. And I'm like, man, you got to stop doing that, dude. You literally are opening the door for everybody else to do it. And if I couldn't tell, the average public is in trouble.
Oh,
So
yeah.
and maybe that would be my defense if I was that guy. Somebody AI generated it.
There's a podcast called Pod Save America. It's done by these brilliant guys who used to be like the former speechwriter to Obama.
Oh,
And
wow, nice.
And they cover the news really intricately. And there was one time where they played a clip, and three of the hosts didn't know it was AI generated. They just assumed it was something Trump said. And he was like, no, guys, this was an AI thing. It was a joke.
God. Yeah, I mean,
I wonder how that is. Like, okay, so in India, if you're sharing clips like that on WhatsApp, if you're in a rural town, how do you even know? Are you aware of what AI is able to do? Are you able to decipher whether that is the actual person or just something else? Or do you just send the mob after them?
What concerns me over there is you guys seem to have a mob mentality where they go kill a bunch of people. Now over here, our mob mentality is they just go vote stupidly, and ours has more long-term consequences. You kill a bunch of people and it ends, and everybody goes, man, maybe we shouldn't have done that. No, ours is, we got 4 years of idiots. We have got, we've got issues here, and ours is Christian nationalism is what we are up against, and in the Bible Belt, that is really hard to argue against, because we have 80% Christians here. Now, what I caught from your guys' deal is you've got anti-Muslim sentiment, which is easy in most parts of the world. All you got to do is if they're in a minority, and I hate to see that because most Muslims I know are pretty damn good. So I hate that. But what has changed with that in America is, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this. So I got a brother-in-law. His name's Muhammad. Obviously he's Muslim, and every time a terrorist news story would come on, he would say, "Oh God, I just hope they're not Muslim." Now, I say that now. I'm looking going, God, tell me it's not some old white guy. Please just tell me it's not. And so that whole script has changed. And now we're dealing with people who look like me that are doing just really weird shit, but they're getting terribly manipulated. Terribly. And how do you solve that?
Yeah. See, this is where you and I will go back to our usual point of education's the only way to get any country kicking and screaming, dragged into the 21st, second century, whatever the hell is going on.
So my challenge is, is it okay if I tell you the story about stuff I did this weekend?
Sure.
So I'm at two different speaking events, and I am the lone Democrat at two different speaking events. And one of them is, you would think it's providing children information to be able to basically see what a sexual predator is, even if they're operating, trying to get one of your friends, so you can keep them away from it. You can see it, you can visualize it, you can turn them in, you can say something. Everybody in the state of Oklahoma is required to go to law enforcement if they're informed by a kid, but they don't. And that's why it perpetuates. But I am there with the most right-wing folks that I have seen in the House of Representatives in Oklahoma. And a couple of them I knew back when they were normal and they were running like for Congress and stuff. But to keep a House seat, meaning a House of Representatives, or a Senate seat here, they got to be all the way out right-wing. And I gave a great speech. It was great hanging out with all of them. But I'm sure as soon as I left, they're all very respectful to me because I've got a pretty good track record at this point of taking people out. And I'm glad to be on the same side as them on this one. But I did have this big old bald guy, literally, that worked security for Ryan Walters, the school guy that I always end up fighting against, telling me about conspiracy theories that the federal government is trying to use COVID money to buy back land for the federal government called like 30-30. And he kept looking at me, and I'm like, I know what it is. And all I really was thinking is, oh, dear God, I can't get these 2 minutes back. And I didn't say that because he was being polite, you know? And he was just trying to talk to me about policy and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but you lost me when you did the 30-30 thing. And so I can't come back from that. If you're espousing conspiracy theories, I just can't have anything to do with you. You know, there's no reason. So the reason I bring that up is I go to my second event, which is it's called OK2A, OK Second Amendment. And these are everybody, you know, half of them wear guns in the place and all this other stuff. And I don't care. I mean, I literally don't care. The only thing that I would like them to do is, you know, concealed weapons is smarter. People don't know you have it. So I'm speaking there, and this guy gets up and asks me a question, and he's wearing a badge that's not a police badge or an FBI badge, just a fucking badge. And I hate that with people because it gives you the illusion that they are of law enforcement, and they're not. He's selling some fucking insurance, literally insurance for gun owners who shoot somebody at their house. But he's got the right pants, and he's got the right holster and a gun and a badge, and he's not a cop. How is that not illegal?
No. At least it should have like a hat that says Halloween costume.
I'm not real.
Sorry.
So he stands up, and we're talking about schools, and he's like, school safety, you got to do this with safety and safety and safety. So he is what I would say is the problem. He's selling insurance for people to shoot people, and then they get automatic lawyers is what it is. That does not mean you get a good lawyer. But he has his one tool on his belt, which is a gun. So everything needs to be solved with that one tool, a gun. A carpenter only has a hammer and nails. Everything is solved with hammer and nails. You know, a tile guy, a tile saw cuts everything. I hate that mentality. And so he said his spiel, and he goes, nobody can learn anything in schools until they're safe. And I was like, well, I mean, we had this crazy presidential candidate named H. Ross Perot, real super rich guy. But what he said is, he goes, now look, what you really need are local schools. Now, you got some kids that are totally fine. You got other kids that need more attention and everything else. Really small local school solves that whole problem. Because the only reason you need 2,000 or 4,000 people in school is because you're trying to win a football championship. It's got nothing to do with school. It's got to do with 11 bigger guys so you can win a district or a state championship. And that was probably right. So, so I go through this deal, and I don't know if you would say the same thing for India. I go, look, the biggest problem in America is we are still putting out people that can't read. And in this society right now, you have to be able to read. And it's not changing. Telephones aren't changing. Computers aren't changing. Tablets aren't changing. If you order in a shitty fast food restaurant, you have to be able to read.
Yeah. So
I go, how about we do you know what SEAL Team 6 was? They were the ones that killed Osama bin Laden.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they call it. So I'm like, how about we do the SEAL Team 6 of reading? We get the 100 best reading teachers in the state. They go on a couple of buses with the best equipment to the schools where we have the worst reading and find out what's actually wrong. Because usually it's something wrong, like your eyes move different ways. Your favorite ex-employee, my son Kyle, his eyes, he was a good athlete because his eyes would, like if you were a baseball or cricket, you could see the pitcher and you could see first base. Yeah. But what you have to do for reading is you got to bring them back together and retrain them to move at the same time. And once we did that, he was totally fine. But a whole bunch of these kids, especially in poor schools, don't have access to any of this. So just let them keep passing through. And where do they end up, Deepak? Where do people that can't read end up?
Either in prison or in
jail.
Oh, as the political minions of another party.
Yeah, there you go. So I roll through this whole room and I turn everybody, and they're like, well, God, he's not a leftist liberal and all this stuff. He's worried about people reading. And you go, yes, but if I didn't go into that room, which very few Democrats would be willing to do because they think they're going to be shot, which those meetings are more organized and more polite than any Democratic meeting I've ever been to. Now, it doesn't mean they agree with you, but you got to talk to them. You got to be willing to talk to them. So how does your guy, not your guy, I can't say that, How does your man from the lowest class get into the rooms with the upper class to talk to him in a way that they can hear? Because he's got to have them.
I don't know whether we have that much mobility and access to that side of the community. I don't know whether it's still that unified, Sean, where these guys will ever find themselves in the same room.
God, crazy.
It is weird when you think about it, because so he appeals to some of the states that do have a larger or a slightly larger percentage of lower class people. The problem is that everybody with land and power in those states are probably from the upper classes and are already in some sort of political office. So when you try to unseat them, how do you combat whatever privileges that they say that they're going to give to the same voters that they might not deliver on, but they manage to convince them that, hey, we're from the upper class, you should listen to us. Why are you voting for that guy?
Yeah,
you guys
he doesn't know anything.
So it ends up becoming tricky when you look at it that way, as to how to even unify a country that is so enormous, in all honesty.
Right. Well, I mean, the sheer vastness is what gets me. What does it cost to run a campaign in a place with 2 billion people? Because our last elections cost over $1 billion per candidate. Like Joe Biden's guys spent $1 billion, for God's sakes.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's roughly. See, that is what I don't understand. It probably costs around the same in India to run for like the highest office in the land. But how are they justifying that much of spending on these campaigns to get into office when that kind of money is not even available for helping certain poor communities in the same country?
Yeah, I would say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm for government paid for campaigns. I like the way that England does that. Very little I like about their government style, but I like that. And you give each one of them a certain amount of money, and they have to budget so you can see whether they can manage money.
Certain amount of money. And also a fixed amount of time. Like, it's just 2 months.
30 days.
Better, 30 days. Better do all your shit in this. But the weird part, and something that I did notice, which was happening, which I've never seen with any of the previous, I think, prime ministers in India, is where any of the foreign visits being politicized and used in campaign ads. If if you're meeting with foreign leaders as part of just your regular day job,
it's the job, right?
How do you use that to, like, I guess it also comes down to the education and people seeing that, our leader is meeting with these foreign leaders, so he must be doing a great job. If you're in a village, that's all you're going to see and be like, okay, I'm going to vote for that guy because I saw him with so many foreign leaders over the past year. But if you're using those things as political campaigns as well, how do you actually segregate the man from the office and from that kind of power that it brings?
Right. So the way I would come back to you on that, having worked in politics and not knowing the Indian environment, so I'm not acting like I do, is you guys seem to be a brand-driven country right now. Or the people that are more affluent are brand-driven. So Macron is a brand. Joe Biden is a brand. So he's identifying himself with brands. And that fits into the marketing campaign of a growing country right now.
Oh, yeah. Because it makes you seem like you are rubbing shoulders with the fellow superpowers, and it gives you a boost in your own ego, confidence, whatever you like to say that. And that is where I always lean on what George Carlin says. Like, be happy, don't be proud.
Valid point. Yeah. I don't know, and I really mean this, because what I remember from Gandhi's history is he came to America and nobody went to the hotel to go see him.
No.
And he took it as a huge insult. Modi rolls over here and Joe Biden gives him the A treatment, the gold treatment. And that tells you have arrived. And it tells somebody you have arrived. You know, I don't know how that carries through to Indians. That would be for you to say, but to Indian Americans, that means something.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember the whole how the moment that they had in Texas where they filled a stadium for him to talk.
Yeah, a stadium, but literally.
Yeah,
a stadium.
and I think it does actually appeal to the really nationalist part of the Indian mentality. Because some of them seem to be like super like proud.
Yeah.
And it's the other day I actually was asked to switch to a local language because this guy didn't want to speak to me in English.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I did switch.
Plus you sound like a British prick. I mean, you do speak proper BBC English. He's like, not only is he Indian, he's a prick. Yeah.
I guess that's one way to get people to stop talking to me.
Right. That is interesting. And you know, Deepak, I get the occasional thing, you know, people literally are like, yeah, you're the oppressors. And I go, are you familiar with Irish history whatsoever? I'm really, you are blaming the wrong guy. Now, 1,000 years ago, yes, I was, but that's got nothing to do with you guys. But they don't know the differences between the different basically countries within the British Empire. You just go, no, we were the oppressed. We just looked like them, and they didn't care. So it's not a color thing with the English. They hate everybody and oppress everybody. It's shit. I don't. So what'd you do? So you switched to whatever his dialect was, and was he fine then, or was he okay?
He was okay, but super condescending, and I just gave up and I just put in my headphones and I was like, David, if you're not even interested in listening when I'm making an effort to speak, I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah. I think we've got, I think, so I did a video this weekend and I said, I feel like things are changing here. I mean, I've been invited into rooms that would never have invited me before. And I think they may be studying me to figure out some way to get me. And I'm okay with that too. And because I don't mind, I if I can get into the room, I can win it over. And hopefully people see who the people are that are going out. So, you know, from tribal, like your guy there that wanted you to speak his language to him, you go, from a tribal perspective, I understand where he's from, but I want to buddy up with the person that knows how to speak the dialect of the people I've got the issues with. Yeah. Usually your local friends think the same way you do, so you don't really have to convince them. But you got to figure out a way to talk to either your enemy, your business trading partner, or something along that lines. And you obviously have gone well out of your way to learn another language that was once the world's biggest power. Yeah. And so you go, well, I refuse to speak in that language. And you go, that is the language of money in the entire world. Yeah. That is the Gaelic one thing I try to get. Yeah, that would be like you promoting Irish Gaelic right now and refusing to talk to me because you're like, no, I will converse with you only in Gaelic. And I'm like, Sean, there are probably like 30 of us in this world who can use Skype and speak Gaelic, so leave us alone. Exactly. It's a very small group, and I'm probably related to every damn one of them. Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't, whether I like it or not, that's the best thing the empire brought to Ireland was a change of language. And you know, the Irish, we get the nationalist Irish, they're like, yeah, but I don't believe this. And you go, yeah, but we can do business all over the world. And before that, we could sell England shit. And that was it. That was our one customer. And if they didn't like the price, they would just take it from us and kill us.
That too.
Right. Are you sure that's your best price? It's there's something to be said for the person willing to step out of that thing. And my guess in Oklahoma now, and the left of the left people that always keep trying to throw me out of the party and shit are probably like, see, he's going to Republican gatherings. He's going to switch to being a Republican. He's going to do that. And you go, no, just trying to talk to people. Yeah.
There was one time where somebody asked me whether you were going to switch to Republican, and I was like, sorry. I'm like, dude, have you met Sean?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Would it be easier? Could it? But my career is not politics. My career is I own restaurants. I mean, if I wanted to do it as a career, I probably would have down here because that's who's in power. Yeah. If I was in Missouri, my hometown, oh God, no, I'd stay a Democrat because I can speak the language of the working man. I was in 2 different unions. I did that shitty work, and I had bosses shit on us, but I also had great ones that paid us a ton of money. So I do have both views on it, and I usually can speak to people that are business owners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while, do I piss them off? Yeah, I do, but that's okay. I don't mind. Hey, I'm going to send you a video of this guy, the 2 people that tried to keep me out of the meeting, and this preacher talking about me in my slew of profanity. I blush. So, right. The best thing people have out of me is, well, he cusses. And I go, yes, I do. I speak like a pub owner. I don't give a shit.
Like right now,
right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say right now, like when people hear me talking and I'm swearing, they're like, how is it that your swearing has increased this much? I was like, oh, man, I hang around a pub. I have Sean around. I have Alex around. We're all potty-mouthed little creatures.
Frustration. Here's the thing. The F word can be a noun, a verb, a pronoun. It can be an adjective and an adverb. It is the most usable word there is. So I take advantage of that. And look, over here, we still have a First Amendment right to freedom of speech. It does not say that I cannot be profane. It doesn't say that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I am still
freedom of
following
speech
the
does include the other one.
So I am curious to see where you guys go on all of this stuff, and are the elections already fixed? And I don't mean that in a mean way, but if the richest guy in the country bought the last TV station, it looks pretty fixed from over here. And that is not Deepak saying that. That's me. Am I still going to be able to get a visa?
Hopefully, Sean. Hopefully. I'm trying to get you blocked, I guess.
I'm not going to get a visa, man. So explain to me before we go about YouTube over there. So the news organizations have moved to YouTube, which I don't know how YouTube viewership works over here, but it's obviously a bigger thing over there. Oh, so is that your competitor for WhatsApp? Is people going to YouTube?
Yes. So YouTube right now has like independent journalists who are posting their clips on there, which certain people, certain officials say that, oh, that's all just fake news because it's on YouTube.
Right.
So they kind of have a way of like brushing it aside and saying, yeah, that's just made up news. You'll need to listen to the actual TV channels that we post news from. And it's just a weird way where this guy, the name of the documentary is, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it while we watched it. And the only way that
while we were watching,
and the only way he's able to generate money and put out articles is through his YouTube channel, where YouTube just pays him because he has the same monetization shit that we go through from time to time.
Yeah. Right.
We're less than a minute, by the way.
Okay. Well, then take us out, my friend. It was good to talk to you.
Hopefully nothing bad happens after this episode.
Hey, give me a ring. Right. Yeah, no shit. I am trying to be careful, and I hope people can understand that. And it's rare for me.
I know. This is the least sworn conversation that we've ever had.
Well, I don't want you to end up in jail, and I don't have anybody to talk to over there.
I know.
All right, buddy, take us out real quick.
Well, that was the Villagers podcast. Hopefully we don't get into any trouble. You can leave all your mean comments on YouTube and Spotify.